Should government regulate drugs like they do alcohol? Tune in. We'll talk about it. Hi, I'm Sue Jeffers for Libertarian Viewpoint. Libertarianism is all about liberty, the exercise of freedom that doesn't impinge on the rights of others. We constantly hear the drum roll of government solutions. This show's purpose is to allow you to see for yourself why non-government solutions are a better alternative. Today our guest is Jack A. Cole. Hi Jack, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sue. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you're going to tell us about LEAP. Tell us what it is.
Well, LEAP is an organization that I co-founded in 2002 after I retired from the New Jersey State Police. I was in that organization for 26 years and 14 years undercover in narcotics. I retired as a detective lieutenant, and I felt so bad about my role in implementing a war on drugs that when I finished, I sat down with 4 other police officers and we put together this organization, LEAP, or Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And the way we came to it is we tried to decide what we should really be interested in doing as law enforcers. And when we boiled it down to the essence, we decided that we should be interested in 4 things: reducing death, disease, crime, and addiction. And sadly, as you well know, so all 4 of those categories are just made infinitely worse by the war on drugs. So that certainly wasn't what we wanted. After much study, what we decided what we do want is reflected in our name. We want to end drug prohibition, just like we ended alcohol prohibition in this country in 1933. Because as law enforcers, we understand the day after we ended that nasty law, Al Capone and all his smuggling buddies were out of business. They were off our streets. They were no longer out there killing each other to control that very lucrative market. They were no longer killing us cops charged with fighting that useless war. And they were no longer killing our children, caught in crossfire and drive-by shootings, all the things we experience today.
I'll tell you, a lot of people would agree that there are far too many laws on the books and we should get rid of the majority of them, I think. But you've been fighting this since 2002. There's a lot of people who do not want to legalize drugs.
Well, that's for sure. Actually, we started the war in 1970, so it's been 40 years that war. We have fought it for 40 years, and in that period, we have spent more than $1.5 trillion, tax dollars, on this war. And all we have to show for that is we have made more than 41 million arrests in this country alone of non-violent drug offenders, non-violent ones. And just think of those figures, 41 million arrests. That's a lot of lives to destroy. And it's not just the person who gets arrested whose life you're impinging on, it's their whole family. You know, you arrest somebody, it's a young person, maybe 20, 21 years old, man or woman, maybe they're married, might even have children. They may be the breadwinner of the family. You arrest this person for what? For using marijuana or something, and suddenly they end up, well, if I was arresting them, they would end up in jail. And the reason I say that is because when I worked undercover, I posed as a drug dealer or drug user. And if people so much as handed me a marijuana cigarette, they were arrested eventually. You know, I would take that cigarette and submit that as evidence that the person that handed it to me was a drug dealer. Because the way the laws are written, it says it's illegal to distribute a controlled dangerous substance. It doesn't say anything about money exchanging. So just the mere fact of handing one marijuana cigarette from one person to another makes you a drug dealer. And back when we started this crazy mess, most of the people we were arresting were marijuana users. And we were charging them with distribution of drugs. And they were going to prison for 7 years back then. 7 years for handing somebody a marijuana cigarette.
Our jails are full of people for that very reason. And when you talk about the 44 million people, when you talk about the 1.5, I think you said, $trillion that we've spent on this ridiculous war on drugs, the numbers are just absolutely staggering. Do you think in the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you've made any progress? I see a lot of people now saying, oh, maybe we should legalize marijuana, but nothing else. Do you think you're making strides?
Yes, we think we're making tremendous strides. Until we came along, nobody was making any progress with this stuff. And we think we've been the missing link because the organization, as I say, was created by 5 founding members, all of us cops. Today, 10 years later, we have over 50,000 members, and we're not just cops now, we're police, judges, prosecutors, prison wardens, DEA and FBI agents, and supporters in 86 countries. And we have a credibility, we bring a credibility to this issue that nobody has been able to come up with before in drug policy reform, because we spent our whole careers, all of my adult life I spent trying to reduce drug abuse. I don't want to legalize these drugs so that people go out and use them. I don't want to see one additional drug abuser in the world. And if I thought that what we're doing would cause that, I just wouldn't be doing this. So we haven't changed our mind about that. What we have changed our mind about is what will actually reduce death, disease, crime, and addiction. And what will reduce it is ending drug prohibition. So let me explain to you what happens when you prohibit a drug. Any drug. It could be coffee. And by the way, I love to speak over in Europe because when I'm speaking to those people, I remind them that they're usually sitting there with a cup of coffee while they're listening, and I remind them that in 1550, for about 75 years thereafter, possession of that thing that they have in that coffee cup would have caused them to lose their head back then.
Oh my
gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So there's really no rhyme or reason even to what drugs we choose to say are going to be illegal. But once you make the drug illegal, 2 things happen. The first thing is for that particular drug, you create an underground market that's instantly filled with criminals. And the second thing is even worse, and that is now that the drugs are illegal, that makes them dangerous to produce and supply. You can get arrested, you can go to prison for life, you can end up getting killed either by other drug dealers or by police. So that very danger creates an artificially inflated value for these drugs, a value that is so obscenely high that between where they are produced, mainly in developing countries like Colombia or Afghanistan, now in Mexico, and where they're sold in the United States or Europe, between those 2 points, that value could increase by more than 17,000%. Imagine what an obscene profit motive that is. Now, because of that, I learned very early on, living in the streets and trying to do this, that there's no way we can arrest our way out of this. And I did learn that, when a uniformed cop arrests somebody for, say, a rape or a robbery in your community, the number of rapes and robberies goes down, right? You got the guy. But when I arrested someone for selling drugs, the number of drug sales didn't change at all. Not a bit. All I was doing was creating a job opening for hundreds of more people that were more than willing to take that person's place. As a matter of fact, it's even worse than that. I wasn't just creating a job opening. I was creating a safe job opening, because if the person wanting to replace that drug dealer went down to the corner while he's still standing there, he'd probably get shot. So once the police take him off, it's a safe thing for him to come into.